When you do meditation properly and for long enough, it causes permanent changes to your subjective experience. Some of these are well known. Buddhism tends to advertise how it can reduce your suffering by orders of magnitude. The news, when it shows monks burning alive, illustrates how you can dissolve pain into vibrations. And there's also ego death. But another effect that it has, which isn't as well known outside of our hot circles, is it changes your perception of space itself. How do I know this? Well, I did a bunch of meditation, and this is one of the effects that I got. I know I'm not unique in this because I verified it with a teacher who had the same experience, and it's also mentioned in Daniel Ingram's book. So, what is this change? Well, it's kind of hard to explain because to understand what's going on, you need to distinguish between certain concepts that we, when speaking normal English, don't normally distinguish. Consider this book. The title isn't important, just that it's a physical object. This book is a physical object. This book is real. But your perception of this book is not the same as this book. There's a physical book that exists in the physical world outside of you. But then there's also a copy of this book inside of your brain. The copy of the book and the book inside of your brain have a one-to-one correspondence. For example, when I open this book, the book in the physical world opens. But that's not the only book that opens. There's also the copy of the book in your brain that your brain is simulating that also opens. Now for the weird part. Everything that you perceive, everything you are consciously aware of, is not the external object in the physical world. It is the representation of that object in your brain. There is no way to directly perceive the external object in the physical world. You might think that you're perceiving sensate inputs, that is, the data coming in from your senses. But that's not actually true. Your consciousness does not directly perceive the inputs to your senses. And here's an example. Right now, assuming you have two eyes, which most of the people watching this do, photons are hitting your left eye and photons are hitting your right eye. Your left eye is sending encoded images to your brain. Your right eye is also sending encoded images to your brain. But your consciousness doesn't render two images. Your consciousness only observes a single, not even image, but more like a single world that's constructed out of those two images. We know that you're not directly perceiving sense inputs because you have two eyes, but your consciousness only observes a single visual world. Consider this book again. There's an image of this book going into your left eye, and an image of this book going into your right eye. But even though there's two streams of sensate inputs, your consciousness is only aware of a single world that it's constructed. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're looking at a real book that is a physical object outside of you. But that's not actually the case, because first of all, you can't directly perceive an object outside of you, but even if you were directly observing your sensate inputs, you wouldn't be observing one book, you'd be observing two. What feels like a book that is external to you, that is external to your consciousness, is actually a mirror image of the book rendered in your consciousness. For the most part, this doesn't matter. If I throw this book in the trash, the book in your consciousness will also, assuming you're observing me, end up in the trash. So for most practical applications, the distinction between the book in your consciousness and the book in the external world doesn't matter. But when you're meditating, this starts to change. You see, right now, assuming you haven't done tons and tons of meditation, you can sort of distinguish between things that are feelings, like love and happiness, and a warm or cold feeling against your skin, and objects that are external to you, like this book. But that distinction isn't really real, cybernetically speaking. It's kind of arbitrary. This book and the feeling of cold are both rendered in your mind. It might feel like this book is external to you, but when you do lots of meditation, you will notice, and I don't mean notice on a conceptual level, I mean notice on a direct perceptual level, that everything which feels like it's an external object is actually just something getting rendered in your brain the same way happiness or the feeling of a cloth against your skin is getting rendered. There are things that really are external to your consciousness, like the real physical book in real physical reality external to you, But you can't ever perceive that because the stuff you perceive is by definition only the stuff that gets rendered as a copy in your sphere of consciousness.